The next session we have with Darren Kane, who's the Chief Security Officer at NBN Co. When I started in cyber, these kinds of events always included a session, sometimes a few, that were titled, "How do I get my exec to care about security awareness?" And I think to Darren's credit, he was one of the first CISOs who actually did. So Darren and his entire team have really been long-time supporters of the SIT community and provide invaluable contribution to the SIT discussions. And I think that generosity is on display again today. So it's clear, Darren, you understand the importance of people when it comes to cyber. And in fact, Darren's session today is even titled People, People, People. So Darren, I know you're incredibly busy, and I know that the community, though, gets a lot of value from your insights. So really interested to hear what you have to share today. So I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Blair, and thanks for the really nice wrap up to introduce me. Hello, everyone. As Blair mentioned, Darren Kane, I'm the NBN's Chief Security Officer. And for those not down here in Australia, it's the National Broadband Network. Look, I'm really excited to be here at the 8th Annual SANS Security Awareness Summit and super proud of the SIT group who have joined forces with SANS to host the inaugural APAC event. As Blair said it, the security group here at NBN, I have a mantra that the three most important things managing a security team is people, people, and people. So when I heard that the theme of the summit was to be managing the human risk, I really wanted to be on this agenda because I think it's a really important area that needs a little bit more focus. Those who know me know that I firmly believe people are at the heart of the success of any security strategy or program. And I know this is an audience of people who believe in that too. So you're all highly skilled at engaging and motivating people about security and hopefully changing behaviours. So I'm not going to be sitting here and preaching to you how I think you should be doing your job. I know you've got that. What I did hope to share with you today is to give you an insight how I, as a CSO, see security leadership and management evolving over the next 3 to 5 years. And what are the things that you may need to concentrate on and understand so that you can influence people and, where possible, change some behaviours to meet future risks that the organisation will require. Look, I'm going to lay out 5 challenges that security influence teams will need to meet with some suggestions on how I think you might meet them. And of course, hopefully I'm going to leave some time at the end of the session for some questions, either on this forum or going back into the Slack channel. Look, you're probably sitting here looking at me wondering why I'm wearing a high-vis shirt. One of the things that I really believe in is that in any communication style nowadays, particularly over a visual medium, you've got to be authentic. As a leader of a particularly large security accountability here at NBN, I feel that you can't be aloof or distant when you're delivering instructions from on high. Instead, we need to be a part of the team so we can better understand what we're asking each and every person in our organisation to do. And that's why I spend a lot of time both in our offices and out in the field. You know, I was always going to wear a high-vis shirt for today's session and hopefully say to you I'd just come in off a truck, but obviously here in Melbourne, we've had another snap lockdown. So I've gone with the high-vis anyway to make sure that you understand the point I'm making. And that is that we in the security groups must understand who it is that is in our audience and be able to connect with them. Look, let's get into the challenge. Okay, now challenge number 1, and it's an easy one to start with, everybody. It's the new ways of working, supporting, from where I sit, it's a massive and obvious workplace and societal change that we're all living through. And I gather that most of the folk on the hookup this morning will be from Australia, and they'll actually acknowledge the fact that we've been in some really tough and in some places toxic lockdowns. But what it has meant a different way of working. And I'm sure folk from right across the world understand what I'm talking about. The virus or COVID-19 has radically reshaped the workplace and very quickly. Look, at NBN back in March of 2020, we were told to grab a laptop and get home and take 3 to 5 years of behavioural and organisational cultural change and compact that into 3 weeks. And what was most amazing about it was that we were able to actually adapt within 3 days. And in fact, we've adapted so well and we're so comfortable in working from home or flexibly that not a lot of people actually want to return to office or return to the 9 to 5 5 days a week that we were working. Now, as security teams, we have to reorient our programs to support remote working while still managing the security risk. A critical part of this is educating people to think about security considerations when working remotely. Example, not letting people use personal devices for work activities, understanding the risk of public Wi-Fi and so forth. Now, the truth is cloud and mobile technologies have been around for a long time. Bring your own device has been an issue in most workplaces since I've been in roles similar to the one I have. And greater use of cloud-based services in the workplace, we're seeing that there was an increased mobile access with a high number of mobile work accessing our environment. So we always knew that this was an issue. COVID's meant that we've had to address it much quickly. So what are some of the key considerations for security influence awareness teams? Firstly, we need to give more remote working advice. From what I'm seeing here at the NBN, and I'm sure from feedback I've had from across the industry, the actual public or the audience that we're dealing with are saying, what do we do? How do we do it? We need to tune our awareness programs to how people are working. At NBN, we run a dedicated awareness campaign around remote working and even supporting people with things like homeschooling and even online parenting where we think it's appropriate. But we also must not catastrophize. One of the things that I have said to the team here is a number of security risk assumptions that I had about remote working just haven't been realised. And in fact, I've been surprised how quickly our company has adapted to remote working and managed within the risk culture. Secondly, let's think about how hard it is to cut through in these new workplace arrangements. What messages and how do we deliver these messages is really important. The deeper question is, how do we build and embed a security culture in the remote context? We might need to re-encourage conventional ways of engaging, like face-to-face meetings. Example, when things return to normal at NBN, we're looking at how we can create exciting and engaging opportunities to have people to return to the workplace. One of the things was a high vis or a flannel shirt day, so that one in every 3 or 4 weeks when people are asked to return to the office, social distancing allowing, I'm going to try and have everyone come in relatively on the same day with a bit of a theme, so that it's an encouragement to return to the workday. And these are the sorts of things that I think are wonderful opportunities for those in security influencing and communications area to think about when we actually want to engage them. That was challenge number one. And it's really important that in closing, when you return to your workplace, I encourage you all to take a moment to pause and reflect on our new workplace reality and make sure your programs are fit for purpose and for the way folk are now working remotely. I think I'm responsible for moving that on, aren't I? Can you hit that new slide, please? Thank you. Okay, now challenge number 2 is convergence of security risk. Now, for those that know me and have spoken with me around this, was a hot topic of mine back in 08, 09, 10, 11, 12, and when I arrived here at NBN in 15, it was one of the first things that I actually put in place. And what you may ask, what is a converged model of security? Well, what it is a single accountability or owner for all security risk right across the organisation. Now, I actually think that this is starting to become a real trend right across the world, and particularly here in Australia. And I know that the government's PSPF, and I know that the government's critical infrastructure legislation that is a potential reform is asking critical infrastructure owners to consider this way of managing security risk. Now, why I raise this today, it's because you and your communications or your security influencing teams are going to have to address the fact that there's a multitude of different messaging around the different security risks represented by a converged model. For example, while many organisations continue to separate physical and cyber, I expect the holistic approach will start to catch on more broadly, and your messaging has to change from just phishing. You'll actually have to address the fact not only is it a phishing message, but it's a tailgate message. Not only is it a password message, but it's a lanyard message. And this is an important issue for you to understand how the actual security industry is evolving. I think one of the things that you what we've traditionally focused on is that security influence programs, from our training to our communications, haven't traditionally integrated that. And I think now's the time to do it. So point 2, challenge 2 is understand that convergence is here, understand that your messaging will have to adopt that. And I expect convergence to be a dominant trend in our industry today and in years to come. And I expect teams like yours to play a prominent role in influencing and helping organisations understand, A, what convergence means, and messaging is going right across the actual horizon of it. Thank you. Challenge 3. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about these pictures before I move into challenge 3. What we've got is a person preparing brush, cutting it away, looking to prevent the prospect of a fire. In the centre is a metronome, which is a balance or a beat manager. And on the right, of course, is an image of fire and a fireman fighting the fire. And I call this program Shift Right. So from the prevention, detection, industry risk management focus that we've traditionally had to actually business continuity and how we're going to respond to a cyber incident. Many of you will be familiar with the security lifestyle stages of identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Now, they are coming from the NIST program or life cycle of cyber. I generally use the 6th one called review, so respond, recover, review. But traditionally, a lot of the work we do is focused on the identity of threat, the prevention of threat, the detection. And I believe that we're not doing enough to understand what our roles will be in an incident, how to manage the incident at the time, and how quickly we can go into recovery mode, and then what can we learn from it. And this is the message that I think you can help me get out and then provide support to the organisation for. One of the issues here is that I believe because of the complexity of the security risk environment we're being asked to manage, that eventually we will probably have a compromise or be susceptible to a vulnerability. The volume of cyber incidents and recent scourges like ransomware are showing us increasingly that the biggest issues in the cyberspace or security risk is response and recovery. Now, I'll give you an example of that. How often do you hear the question, should I pay the ransom? Putting aside the many options or opinions on this question and the potential for a debate on answer, the frequency of people asking that question reveals that the attackers are getting through. And we need to think about what happens when it happens to us. We need to shift right, as the metronome says, and balance up our way of managing security risk. And what are the key challenges or considerations for you as a team in trying to manage communication and security influence? As leaders like me start to shift towards the response and continuity issue, how will you actually align to these changes? Preventative awareness messages around things like phishing will continue to be important. But as teams, we also need to focus more on people understanding their roles in understanding, what happens when the dam bursts? What is your job when the water starts filling up around the outside of the house? And the role that you may play in making sure that the water doesn't get into all of your critical parts of your house, and then how to mop it all up. Consider a fireman. A fireman is trained to do preventative work and smoke alarms and go out and advise people to clean gutters and clear brush, looking at the fellow with the brush cutter on the left-hand side of the screen there. But then they were also given hoses and given tactical and strategic advice on how to manage fire. So from my perspective, you need to understand that the hose and the tactical advice is just as important as clearing the brush. In the wrap up here, I encourage you all to learn about the response activities and processes your organisation has in place and think about how your teams can influence people to best support those. And this is a real issue that I think will become prominent over the next 3 to 5 years. Now, challenge number 4 is towards pastoral care. This is leaning back into the people aspect of this discussion. We need to work harder at managing the mental stress of the role of managing security risk in an organisation, and what I might allege is breach fatigue. Now, building on from my previous point, one of the things that I observed is that the constant focus on prevention and preventing attacks has created a lot of anxiety and, frankly, almost PTSD among our people who feel they are on the hook for preventing attacks and ensuring that they never fail. And there's a real creep of fear of failure. You know, people think if we have an attack, I may lose my job. So therefore, their mental health is constantly under pressure. Now, as a result of that, we need to address that by the way we actually provide information and support to people. I'm sure this anxiety and fatigue extends right across the organisation as people constantly hear about what to do and the ever-tightening risk of cyber attack. A major concern for me as a leader is the pastoral care of my people. My question for teams like yours are, now beyond educating people about security behaviours, how can you help me manage the pastoral care of our security teams and make these people understand that it's okay to fail? And in fact, if anything, it's the best way to learn in this space. In my view, we need to keep working on a genuinely empathetic, people-centric approach to security messaging that reflects and understands the predicament we are all facing and supports and nurtures us to work together. An example is, avoid the victim blaming. Don't have phishing drills where you target a victim for special learning, or if anything, even a warning. To me, we need to anonymise the clickers and focus on the learnings. Another is using humour to humanise. At NBN, we're placing more importance on tools like humour, which can humanise what is otherwise a very serious and sometimes negative conversation. So in the wrap up here, I see both a need and an opportunity for teams like yourselves who manage communication and behavioural change to go beyond merely issuing advice to also being empathetic resources that supports people in an organisation to shift behaviours and meet emerging security challenges. Next slide, please. Right, this is one that I actually see as a real trend. The final challenge I wanted to lay out was about how we communicate and what it is we're all about here in these industries and roles. We're moving from a role of securing the organisation towards one of promoting trust and confidence in the organisation. Now, when COVID hit last year and Australia went remote and leaned really heavily on the national broadband network, our organisation had a definite mission, and it really began to crystallise. As critical infrastructure, our ability to provide reliable and secure connection was the concept that was passed to me as a baton. Now, underpinning both of these, reliability and security, were two words that I actually picked up on, and that was trust and it was confidence. So organisations are actually expecting us in the security industry to give them trust and confidence in any product or service that we promote. We are about supporting and enabling people and businesses to get the best out of the digital world. And what are the key challenges for you folk in that space? Well, really, my final challenging question to you is to think about how we can recast what it is we've traditionally done around the messaging we've delivered. As an industry, we need to stop thinking about always being on the back foot and in defence. And we've heard it all the time. You must do this because if you don't, this will happen. You must do that because if you don't, this will happen. And if anything, we catastrophise the prospect of what may happen because we believe that gave us recognition or may have even enabled the importance of our role or extra resources to do our job. And I think we've got to change from that and become more positive and build trust and confidence in our messaging. This is the future of security risk management, and it is the messaging we are increasingly pushing or being asked to push out by our business when we talk about our work. And on many, many occasions now, I'm rolled out to enterprise customers and RSPs and told to actually explain to those potential customers what it is that we put in place and why we feel they should have trust and confidence in the NBN. And I believe that all of us in this industry are going to have to take that baton and move forward into this space. So in my wrap up there, in my view, we might be up for a challenge where security influence has the most important role to play. That is promoting the organisation, almost a competitive advantage, if you like. We need you to use your skills in influencing perceptions, mindsets, and behaviours about what it actually means to work in security and why an organisation benefits from it. So just going over those, the 5 challenges, I've got a little bit of time left. Challenge 1 was supporting the new ways of working, okay, understanding that flexible and hybrid working is here to stay. Our messaging has to actually reflect that. Number 2, the challenge 2 was the convergence of security risk and the fact that there's a multitude of messaging right across the security spectrum that we actually have to manage and provide resourcing for. Challenge 3 was the move right from the actual identity, protection, detection to what do we do when an incident happens? How are we going to respond? How will we recover? And most importantly, from an influencing perspective, how do we actually learn from what happened? So I think we need messaging around that. Number 4 was moving towards the pastoral care of our people. You people are my voice. I want to make sure that my voice and the importance of this issue is heard amongst the teams that do an important role for the enterprise. And number 5 was the fact that influencing perceptions from security and away from the fact that we used to be in the basement and we can't tell you because if we did, we might have to shoot you, to the fact that no, if we do our job really well, the trust and confidence that comes with it is a huge benefit for everybody. Now, last but not least, in wrapping up, I've got a couple of minutes there for questions. I'm a huge advocate, as Blair said at the very start, for a dedicated security influence team. This is not a specific initiative, but I wanted to call it out as a key. The only proactive lever I have to properly manage my job is a really well-oiled and capable team managing security influence for me. The foundation for our success here at NBN is that we have a dedicated team of professionals whose entire focus is just promoting security culture and awareness and good security behaviours. By making it their day job, not just a side concern, they can be strategic, they can be focused, they are innovative, they are creative, and they're engaging and able to influence people. And that's exactly what I'm on about. Now, the team has enormously strong executive support, and I actually probably meet with them at least 2 or 3 times a week, and we have a lot of fun. I love the way people think in this space. I encourage you all to advocate for the importance of building such a dedicated team within your orgs. And if you haven't got a dedicated team managing your security influence and communication, I would actually advocate for it. I'm all for injecting humour into the conversations, as you can see there. Now, we've done a number of different things. And one of the things I did want to talk about is the 14-day security challenge. And I know Paul Diaragio from the team is going to be a later part of one of these sessions. And I do encourage all of you to sit in on that, and Paul will walk you through the success of that program. And there's a couple of other shots there where I've done a number of different videos. One particularly where we actually spoke about why you should probably change your password. That was on high rotation around all our corporate sites. Look, I'm going to leave it there because I did offer 4 or 5 minutes to answer any of your questions if I got any, and I will go back into the Slack channel. So I wanted to thank everyone and wish you all good luck in your programs. And I encourage you to reach out to myself or the team that works here at NBN if you'd like to learn more about some of the things I've spoken about today. Last but not least, those 5 steps or 5 challenges that I've actually put up are really here already. And if you're not thinking towards what it means to provide content around them, you probably should be. Thanks, everybody, and I'm happy to take a couple of questions, Blair.
Excellent. Thanks, Darren. That was really fantastic. And I think, a lot of what you said would have resonated with the broader group. They certainly did for me. And I think, we've been on a similar journey as probably everyone has around the last 18 months around remote working. And you talked a lot about authenticity, and I think that's incredibly important. And I actually think being removed from each other has actually torn down a few of the barriers that we had in place when we were working face to face, in that it's provided some kind of visibility into each other's lives. And I think it's opened up the dialogue, and we're having kind of much more productive conversations now than rather probably what we had previously, where there was those artificial barriers. Particularly also like the fact that we're talking about, don't blame humans for being human. We can't train the human out of humans. One of the comments that's floated around for a while is that, the only two industries that really refer to their customers as users and dehumanize them that way is really IT or security and drug dealers. So I think we kind of need to remember that on the other end of the line, we have humans and people, and how are they going to respond? So really great messages coming through. One of the questions that I did have for you, Darren, was what are the skills, capabilities, and outlook? Well, I should start actually. You sort of talked about having a dedicated team for security influence. So I think leveraging off that is, what are the skills, capabilities, and outlook of those security influence professionals that you think can best support those challenges ahead of them?
It's a really great question, Blair, and I've told Ant Cohen and the team this. I'm loving having Ant run a team of people who aren't security professionals. They are marketers and communicators. They're behavioural change experts, Blair. And they come into this organisation to work for me in security risk with that outlook. It just means that the subject that they're now selling or trying to influence folk about is security. And the one thing that I can tell you is that what we do isn't that complex. If anything, we use poor language and acronyms and other things to make it look like that, because we sometimes think that better protects us in the roles we have. Whereas if you get an Ant or you get a Paul D'Aragio or Arj or Beck Moonen, who dumb down the message, make people understand what the risks are, and help people have better behaviour around security risk, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for good communicators and good marketers, and then I'll teach them all about security.
Yeah, brilliant. No, thanks. There was also a comment from Anastasia as well, who sort of mentioned that she's also dropped a framework there that might be helpful for people too. So look, Darren, I might leave it there, noting we're just about on time, but you did mention you're keen to jump into the Slack chat. We do have a break actually for 15 minutes, so that's a great opportunity for people to jump in there while you're around for the next 15 to leave a few questions. It also gives time for others to get up and grab a bite before we rejoin in 15 minutes at 12:15 Australian Eastern. And also, if you haven't already, jump on and fill in the evaluations for those that have presented so far. So Darren, thanks again. Really appreciate you taking the time.
No worries, Blair. And listen, good luck to everybody, and congratulations on the virtual summit and all of the professionalism I've seen in the preparation to put it together. To Ollie in the UK, to yourself and others, it's been a fantastic initiative. And thanks very much to the team here at NBN that have supported me and helped me put together the presentation. So thanks, Blair, and good luck, everybody.